An anniversary went unheralded last January. It was one of the most remarkable, romantic surprises in English football history, but perhaps too awkward to acknowledge for the club involved. Go back to January 8, 2012, and the away dressing room at Etihad Stadium. Manchester United's players enter, and there, on a peg next to Danny Welbeck's, is a shirt bearing a familiar name. The players are surprised. "Oh," Sir Alex Ferguson says, "Scholes on the bench today." Paul Scholes, coming out of retirement, age 37, to play in an FA Cup victory over Manchester City was comic book stuff. But there's an uncomfortable fact that still holds true to this very day. 12 years on, they still need emergency measures to address problems in the most important part of the pitch. Scholes' comeback was plotted secretly by him and Ferguson because United were in a midfield crisis. But has that ever been truly solved? For most of United's problems, the story begins. It all started to go wrong when Ferguson retired. But oh no, not this one. This one goes all the way back to 2009. Since that very year, 2012, many Premier League greats have illuminated the midfield. N'Golo Kanté, Kevin De Bruyne, David Silva, Fabinho and many more. But United's midfield has been a farrago, makeshifting from Fellaini to Morgan Schneiderlin to Schweinsteiger and to dear old Fred. The semblance of order seemed to have dawned last season under Erik ten Hag. Eriksen and Casemiro gave United a stabilizing after much turbulence, and the addition of Mason Mount in the summer of 23 was meant to bring in a new order and era after 10+ years of midfield turmoil. But what followed since? Just 2 starts for the Bruno, Casemiro and Mount pairing, before a myriad of alternative combinations rolling throughout the year. It took until January of this year for Ten Hag to finally land a quasi-working midfield pairing between an 18-year-old Kobbie Mainoo and a nearly bent Scott McTominay. McTominay and Mainoo are testaments to the enduring fertility of United's academy. But Ten Hag had tried 9 other combinations before aligning on his most recent mix. But instead of landing any acquisitions on Ten Hag, we'll need to zoom out back to July 2022 and understand the narrative that unfolded. When Ten Hag arrived, fundamental to his plans was recruiting Frankie de Jong and building through the middle, the Ajax way. Albeit be known to everyone, de Jong stayed at Barcelona. What was the outcome? United were 9th in the Premier League's possession table, and Ten Hag seemed further from his ideals than ever. And now, analyzing the current midfielders through the scope of possession control, a metric measuring what difference players make to a team's ability to keep the ball, and note, only 18-year-old Kobbie Mainoo has a positive rating. Last season's supposed tone-setters and midfield elders, Casemiro and Eriksen, have starkly flaky numbers. Now, critics will base a conclusion off of Bruno's minus 12.42 metric and suggest he is the root cause of United's lack of control. And although that's true, there's more than meets the eye with him. When you consider expected threat, Fernandes becomes the only United midfielder in the Premier League's top 70 players. Then consider the graph of completion rate and progressive passes, a 4-way corner chart that classifies players in relation to the number of times they lose possession and the quality of chances they create. The more a player approaches the top of the chart, the more chances they create, and the more they approach the right, the lesser they lose possession. Hence, your ideal midfielder would be closer to the top right corner. The holy grail of distributing football with utmost precision and accuracy then lays with Rodri, followed by Declan Rice. Bruno, yet again, is the most lethal of all of United's midfielders when creating chances. But ideally, only Mainoo is closer to where any United midfielder should be, in both retention and creation. Or how about this? Since the start of 2012, 25 players have started 5 games or more for United in the Premier League. From almost 1,000 games, their combined total of assists, 87, is considerably less than De Bruyne has managed all by himself in 243 games. But the inception of the midfield chaos goes back before Sir Alex Ferguson retired. As far back as 2009, there were unheeded signs the club needed a rethink in the midfield area. Back when Barcelona's immortal midfield trio tore down the centre in the Champions League final and were run down close to the league title by a Liverpool side with a better core. Football was changing in the direction of possession, build-up and central control, and Liverpool's options were Xabi Alonso, Javier Mascherano, Gerrard and Lucas Lavia. Ferguson still had his 2008 Champions League winning midfield of Scholes, Michael Carrick and Owen Hargreaves. But Hargreaves' career was being eradicated by injuries and Scholes was aging. To draw light on the history that nostalgia had made picture perfect, United's midfield that won the Premier League in 2013 still had Carrick and Scholes in the middle. To put it bluntly, 5 years since the midfield started to rot, there was a failure to renew. Perhaps there was enough brilliance on the other sides of the pitch for Ferguson to reach the Champions League final and salvage a few titles before the sunset. Or perhaps it was rather a testament to his incredible resourcefulness that he made an extraordinarily ordinary midfield of ancients, Scholes, Giggs, a creaking Carrick, Anderson, Cleverley and Jones the middle piece of the Premier League title in 2013. Say what you want, but that in by itself should go down as one of Ferguson's greatest heists. But Ferguson knew there was an imminent catastrophe arriving and gave warning to his immediate successor, David Moyes. He invited Moyes to his house and bestowed the United job, but followed it with a warning: "We need a midfield player." Ferguson mentioned that he preferred a player like Fabregas to take the wheels off of the midfield, which Moyes liked. In the summer of 2013, Fabregas was the #1 target, who was poised to leave Barcelona. Moyes declined an opportunity to bid for Thiago Alcantara because of it. But a week before the new season, Fabregas informed Moyes he was staying in Spain. United then signed Fellaini and surprisingly paid $4 million more than his release clause, and failed to make a deadline day move for Ander Herrera. And that's when the scrambling and makeshift buys started to commence. The die for a decade of midfield misrecruitment was cast. By being too clever or too dumb, United have missed out on superb midfield signings, while signing ones not fit to lace sneaky butts' boots, never mind Scholes's. There's a remaining sentiment with Moyes where he wonders what might have transcended had he stayed. In February 2014, he had talks with Toni Kroos at the players' house in Munich, and Kroos agreed to join United that summer, but pulled out when Moyes was sacked 2 months later. But Moyes isn't the only one who was left with disappointment. From the moment he became manager in late 2019, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer pushed to sign Jude Bellingham, and was so keen that he used a data company he personally paid for to research Bellingham's attributes. Bellingham was 16 and at Birmingham City when he toured United's training ground with his father in 2020. That moment left Ferguson furious when the kid was brought to meet him, but they weren't allowed to talk for long because John Murter soon guided the Bellinghams away. United also held talks with the representatives of Ilkay Gundogan, Fabinho and Eduardo Camavinga, but didn't follow up with bids. Stories of such misses are quite prominent, and perhaps too painful of a reminder for what might have been. Rio Ferdinand tells a story about tapping up Luka Modric. This was in 2012, before Modric moved to Real Madrid. After a United-Tottenham game, Ferdinand said to Modric, "Listen, you've got to come to United, man." And Modric replied, "Yeah, I want to be the first Croatian to play for Man United. I want to be that guy. Can we make it happen?" Ferdinand reported the conversation to David Gill, the club's chief executive officer at the time. But Ferguson had already agreed to sign Shinji Kagawa instead. Kagawa did go on to win the Premier League the following season, but was already heading out by the time Louis van Gaal took reins in 2014. On the other side of the story, Modric went on to win 6 Champions League titles and the Ballon d'Or with Real Madrid. There was the summer of 2015 then. City signed De Bruyne. Leicester signed Conte. United signed the posted Schweinsteiger and the couldn't posted Schneiderlin, now playing for Kefisia at the bottom of the Greek Super League. Fellaini and Fairness found ways to be useful, but what does it say that he contributed more goals than any United midfielder of the past 12 years, except McTominay and Paul Pogba? Ah, Pogba. Almost forgot about him. The poster boy for United's muddled midfield thinking. A player they had in their own youth system, let go for free, bought back for 89 million world record fee, then jettisoned again for nothing. When Mourinho signed him in 2016, the hope was to end the midfield havoc and finally enter a new era, spearheaded by the prodigal son. But a positional issue and defensive role disliking soured the end for them. Pogba's defensive shortcomings were already visible in his academy days. A similar note was shared by one of his youth coaches at United, decrypting his role of play. People always looked at his size and thought Patrice Vieira, but Paul was more like Iniesta. Even when he was young, he drifted to the left and played like an inside forward. He wasn't disciplined. A great talent, but he didn't run a game for you. At least Pogba was a big signing who was on the right side of 25. In the past dozen years, the intensity of Premier League football has increased exponentially, with midfield at the eye of the storm. And yet, United have recruited and retained so many old players in that department. Casemiro and Eriksen were excellent at the start of last season, but thoroughly exhausted by the end of it. And was that a surprise, given both turned 32 in February? Nemanja Matic joined under Mourinho when he was 29 and already slowing down. Same reason Chelsea wanted to cash in. Yet he was still playing for Solskjaer 5 years later. Louis van Gaal deemed Carrick too old for a new contract, but Mourinho arrived to give him another one at 35. Schweinsteiger was 31 when he joined. He was past his prime, a concession made by Carrick in his autobiography. The timing was wrong. I'd like to have played with Basti 3 or 4 years earlier. Midfield is the hub of any playing style, so perhaps it's natural that it's the era most damaged by 11 years of United changing managers and philosophies. Last summer seemed another opportunity missed, although it was evident throughout the previous 12 months that Rice would be available. United weren't even in the race. The reasoning can be attributed to United signing Casemiro for nearly 70 million a year earlier, and having to comply with PSR. Ten Hag's priority was a number 8 in Mount and a number 6. The signing of Sofyan Amrabat was riddled with miscues and opportunities, along with the pursuit saga of Ryan Gravenberch, who ultimately joined Liverpool. There's a common theme of failure in landing crucial targets, lack of transfer strategy, and poor contract decision in this midfield havoc story. The football department has been nothing but a disaster in the past decade. And perhaps that's why Sir Jim Ratcliffe's Ineos restructuring United's football department is the most vital step. A well-constructed one has first-choice players, understudies, and younger options coming through, all with similar characteristics and in every position. It's logical and reeks of succession planning. In contrast, United is like a child's messy bedroom strewn with toys. Some new, some tired of, and some broken. Yet, no one knows how. They're on a project start again, is how a leading Premier League scout assesses their midfield. There should be a focus on the best players for tomorrow, such as Real Sociedad's Marta Zubimendi in number 6, and Benfica's João Neves. Tying down McTominay should also be a priority. In a shift of narrative, Scott has become Ten Hag's go-to man from the sub, providing goals and relief in moments of turbulence. He has become an asset. And in Mainu, there is such hope, combining work ethic and high technical ability. He is a credit not just to United's youth program, but also Ten Hag. There will be a decision to make with Casemiro and Eriksen, leaving the manager with the dilemma of choosing between the future or backing the old guards. It was romantic when Ferguson chose the latter in Scholes' case. but not representative of what made him, or his club, once upon a time, so good. But now, it's time for Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos to usher in a new dawn at the heart of it all.